I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
It makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Around the nation, DYT Nation, Jeff Waldorf here. Welcome to the show. It is currently a really, really hot Tuesday. Although it's been hot for quite some time, at least where I live. So could I say that, never mind. I was going to try to use science denier, climate denier logic on them, but then I realized, oh, there is no logic. So they have no logic. All right. Anyway, so welcome to the show. We got a great one for you guys today. We are going to talk about, of course, corruption in the Paycheck Protection Program. So that is a man that is going to fire you guys up. I'm pretty sure you're going to be pissed off to see where your tax money is going instead of going to you during a pandemic. So we'll talk about that. Then we've got, of course, another ad from the Lincoln Project that I think is actually devastating. Probably the most devastating ad that I've ever seen against Donald Trump and why it is uniquely going to work against Donald Trump and what we as progressives can learn. A little bit of a takeaway here. All right. We've got that. We've got Costco Ken. That's another of those viral videos going around of people that really, really don't want to be temporarily inconvenienced by wearing their mask. Yeah, there's that. And then we also have a Florida teen who died from coronavirus. And I'm going to give you the heartbreaking details of that, as well as a new study on hydroxychloroquine. And so, fun times. Not only that, but apparently in coronavirus news, our friend Jair Bolsonaro, who is the leader of Brazil, has tested positive. Irony. Lots of irony. Look, I better not say anything because what I would say is probably not nice. But there it is. Bolsonaro has COVID-19. Is he going to learn anything from it? If he survives, I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. How is it that Donald Trump has managed to elude this thing for as long as he has? I mean, look, his luck's going to run out at some point, and he's going to so many people around him have contracted. I'm not saying that I want him to, right? Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that I want him to contract coronavirus. I'm just surprised he hasn't. I mean, Kimberly Guilfoyle is probably one of the newest people close to Donald Trump, and that's, of course, Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, to contract coronavirus, COVID-19. So I don't know. It's amazing. It's amazing. But who knows? Maybe he did have it and they could have suppressed it. I mean, we don't even know. We don't know at this point. Sarge Tech, you're right. He's the Trump of Brazil. Terrible, terrible person, by the way. Terrible. Oh, it's going to Medicare for all. I am not Donald Trump. I can drink with one hand. Thank you. But I just wanted to show you that mug. Man, I missed that campaign. Are we still in the primary? Shit, dude. Shit. That's what I gotta say. Shit. Like, everything's terrible. All right, anyway. I laugh, but you know the story. You gotta laugh or else you're gonna cry. All right. Moving on. Let's get into the stories here. Before I, again, say things that are terrible and probably will get me in trouble. Bolsonaro's a fascist. I don't give a damn if he dies, to be honest. That's not me saying it. That's Mithril in the chat. I'm just going to say that, okay. All right. Agree. Anyway, let's go with the first story here. Let's talk about how corporations are screwing you. Yeah. It appears now that conservative anti-tax and anti-government groups have taken advantage of taxpayer bailouts during the coronavirus pandemic that we are currently in the middle of. Thanks to releases by the Small Business Administration, we now know some of these groups have received this money and at the same time showed rank hypocrisy on government spending. So let me give you some details here. One of the groups named was Grover Norquist's organization. No, Grover Norquist is not a, Sesame Street character. He's actually an anti-tax zealot who runs Americans for Tax Reform. So they say, oh, no increasing taxes, limit government spending. In fact, I think he's the guy who said that I'd like to shrink government down to the size of where you could fit it in a bathtub and then strangle it or drown it or something like that. I think it's drown it in the bathtub, although, many different conservatives have had many different fantasies of killing the government, right? And so it's kind of weird and a little bit disturbing that they hate it so much. But nonetheless, that's a group, Americans for Tax Reform, that hates government spending, bailouts, and, of course, increased taxes. So how much should they take from the government? Well, Americans for Tax Reform took a loan between $150,000 and $350,000 from the Paycheck Protection Program, which, of course, was part of the CARES Act that Congress had passed. So that was, of course, a giant omnibus program that, yes, did give people on unemployment until July 31st to get an extra $600 of federal unemployment benefits to, encourage them, of course, to stay home during a pandemic. That's something that Bernie Sanders fought for, and something that Republicans now are very unlikely to renew. Then we also have the $1,200 stimulus check that was something that Donald Trump was in favor of. He is once again in favor of another $1,200 stimulus check. And so he wants that put into any future coronavirus relief packages. But then again, that's got to get through the Senate. Mitch McConnell is still against that and against passing any more coronavirus relief legislation. So that's part of that CARES Act, right? Is that Paycheck Protection Program, which was supposed to help protect these companies and protect jobs, right? So you get a loan to keep your business afloat. And if you keep all your employees, then you get to basically keep that money. That loan turns into a grant. And so that's the scam that a lot of these anti-tax, anti-government groups are doing. They're saying, well, we're just taking out loans. But then if we don't fire people, we just get free money. And so that's what that's about. And so now it's kind of weird how they don't oppose this. To be fair, Americans for Tax Reform says, well, we were against the CARES Act and we were against the passage of that bill because we thought that was too much government spending. Oh, by the way, since it passed, give me money. Gimme. Bit of rank hypocrisy, right? So now they said, well, we were badly hurt by the government shutdown, and so that's why gimme. Now, tell me, what does Americans for Tax Reform do? How is this group, this anti-government conservative group that I guess runs think tanks and advocates and lobbies for less taxes and less government spending, how are they vital to the economy? I understand that they provide jobs, right? And so that's their justification. Well, I mean, we provide jobs to these people, to basically run propaganda against the government. So government, give us money. Oh, right. And of course, they got that money. Jesus Christ. All right. Well, there's more. There's another beneficiary, the Paycheck Protection Program. And that is the, drum roll please, the Ayn Rand Institute. The Ayn Rand Institute. Of course, named after famed objectivist and libertarian philosopher Ayn Rand. So, you know how much they received from the Paycheck Protection Program? They got a loan of between $350,000 to $1 million. So now they called this, and of course they were immediately out there saying, oh, well, we're still against the government and everything like that. But we think that this is partial restitution for government inflicted losses. Again, how are they essential to the economy? Honestly, none of these think tanks, whatever. Yes, I know they provide jobs, but they're not actually vital to the freaking economy. And so they're not really important. And yet they're getting bailed out by us, the taxpayers. Where do you think that money is coming from? It comes from us. And so now, because, the government shutdown has hurt us so much, now you feel entitled to our money. Amazing. Let me give you a quote here from Ayn Rand Institute board member Harry Binswanger. And so now he said this back in May. Quote, it would be a terrible injustice for pro-capitalists to step aside and leave the funds to those indifferent or actively hostile to capitalism. Adding that any organization would take any relief money offered us. No, of course they would. Think about it. The Ayn Rand Institute is just like Ayn Rand. She had no problem taking Social Security money from the government because, it was beneficial for her. And that's the thing about objectivism, right? Remember, the primary focus of being an objectivist is to be selfish, right? They glorified selfishness, demonized altruism. So if you're a hypocrite and you decide to take government money while opposing government taxation, well, then you would be, as an objectivist, 100% on brand. And I guess technically not a hypocritical because, well, I mean, of course, if it benefits me, of course I'm going to take it. Well, it wasn't actually offered to you, though. That's the thing. You had to apply for it. You had to go and apply for these loans through the Paycheck Protection Program. So it's not as if, there's money here. We're just going to, here, Ayn Rand Institute, we know you don't believe in this. We know you don't want this money. But here, we're going to shove it down your throat anyway, and you just have to accept it from the government. No, they actively applied for it and said, we need the money. Give me their money. Give it to me now. I want that delicious taxpayer money. The Ayn Rand Institute, everybody. Look, this is what they do. They take everything that they can and they kick everyone else away. They kick down the ladder. They pull up the ladder to make sure that nobody else can benefit from this. How many small businesses, real small businesses, were denied Paycheck Protection Program money because these organizations that provide no useful benefit to the economy swooped in and took all that money? Yeah, a lot. These people are not just hypocritical. There's something wrong with them to just hoard that wealth and then to tell regular Americans that are struggling right now to bootstrap their way. It's just, they're sociopaths. Now, there's another group that was also a critic of the CARES Act, right? Citizens Against Government Waste. This is great. That's one of the country's most prominent anti-government spending organizations and a frequent critic of the CARES Act. They took between $150,000 and $350,000 in government loans, which could become grants if they don't lay off their employees. Again, that's part of the grift as well. So, of course they did. Look, if you're not understanding right now that these organizations are all hypocritical and they're all out there to try to gather as much money as much taxpayer money as they can from you to transfer wealth from you up to the top, then you're not paying attention. Now, there are more people on this list. This is a huge list. First, there's politicians, right? For example, West Virginia Governor Jim Justice took a lot of money. He was a former Democrat, now a Republican. This is from a report in Forbes. They said that the coal mining tycoon has served as governor of West Virginia since 2017, and as Forbes detailed in an April 2019 investigation, hasn't been great at paying his bills. His Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs was shut down for 2 months from late March to late May, took a PPP loan ranging from $5 to $10 million. Whoa! The Greenbrier Sporting Club, a membership club that touts luxury living, infinity pools, and more for real estate owners in the 11,000 acres around the resort, took a loan of $1 to $2 million in April. And of course, the reason that we don't have exact amounts is that the administration does not want us to know the exact amounts that they had been given. But again, this is Jim Justice, and he turned from Democrat to Republican because he hates socialism. Greenbrier, as the magazine notes, did not retain a single job with that $5 to $10 million, meaning, of course, that they hopefully will be able to pay back that loan. But as I just mentioned, Jim Justice sucks at paying his bills. So what's going to happen? Are they going to be able to repay that loan? That's a good question. Very good question. There's more. David Green, founder of Hobby Lobby, picked up somewhere between $2 to $5 million for his Museum of the Bible. Now, unlike Jim Justice, Forbes says that saved a total of 249 jobs. So between $2 to $5 million, and they saved just shy of 250 jobs. Of course. Now, look, Hobby Lobby hates the government, unless, of course, the government gives them money. So that $2 to $5 million, since they saved nearly 250 jobs, will likely turn into a grant instead of a loan. All right. So now there's more. The New York Times also reported that Trump loyalists and Trump allies have been receiving this money. One of them being the law firm Kasowitz, Benson, and Torres. Now, that's a law firm that was founded and ran by Trump's longtime personal lawyer, Mark E. Kasowitz. They received a loan for between $5 to $10 million. That firm, of course, represented Mr. Trump for over a decade before he was elected president, both in his business dealings and in other matters, such as helping him keep divorce records sealed, as well as representing him during the Mueller investigation. There's that. Now, the president himself also appears to have benefited from this support, indirectly, of course, since his company didn't actually request any Paycheck Protection Program funding. But data did show that dozens of tenants and buildings owned by Mr. Trump or managed by his companies did receive that money. One reported recipient was a hair salon, the president's hotel in Chicago. Of course, they get money, and then they use that money to, of course, pay rent, and that helps Donald Trump. That helps the Trump Organization. More than 20 businesses listed at 40 Wall Street, an office building near New York Stock Exchange that Mr. Trump has owned since the 1990s, also reportedly received government loans totaling at least about $20 million. At this point, you might be wondering who didn't get loans at this point. Well, I have information on that too. Back to Forbes, who noted that the Paycheck Protection Program has been accused of discrimination against Black-owned small businesses. Oh, so those are the people who are not getting loans, small businesses that happen to be minority-owned. Fantastic. Now, the Times also reports that red states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas did see loan approvals of at least up to 90% of their eligible small business payroll. However, they did rank among the least affected states in terms of unemployment clearing the crisis. So of course, companies that didn't actually need it. Awesome. Now, the two hardest hit states for unemployment claims, New York and California, both blue states, saw loan approvals equal to about 3/4 of their eligible payrolls. Okay, well, that might not seem like a big difference. You got 90% versus 75%, right? And obviously more businesses in California and New York. However, by that measure, California companies would have received billions more from the program if they had seen approvals at the same rate as these red states. So this program is rife with grift and discrimination, including members of the administration, Congress, and companies and think tanks and organizations that really add no benefit to the economy and didn't need it in the first place. You want to target, waste, fraud, and abuse? Well, this would be a great place to start. I mean, right here is a story chock full of waste and fraud and abuse. No wonder Donald Trump and his allies fought so hard to stop any sort of oversight. The American taxpayer, you and I, we're being robbed during a pandemic, no less. When, we should actually be receiving our tax money back in the form of a UBI and guaranteed tax benefits. That's our money. We would like to have some of it back because right now there are 40 million people that are unemployed and a worldwide pandemic that has affected us greatly. We have over, almost 3 million people that we know of that have been infected in the United States, over 130,000 people that have died from COVID-19. There are, of course, as I said before, 40 million people that are unemployed. Until employment returns to pre-COVID levels, and we can't do that in the middle of a pandemic, then people deserve to have their tax money work for them, to come back to them in the form of an income support. But we don't have that. Instead, our money went to giant corporations and connected individuals in the form of loans that will likely be turned into grants. Why isn't this more? Why isn't this a scandal? Why aren't people pissed off? Why aren't you in the streets with your mask on, of course, protesting this? Why? Well, we should be. We should demand a UBI. We should demand an end to the corruption in our government. And we should demand that our money be used to help the people instead of these already powerful, wealthy corporations. All right. Moving on. The conservative Lincoln Project is out with another new ad, this time going after Donald Trump's paranoia. Take a look.
Biden now leads the president.
He's going to be your president.
Why do you think you're losing, Donald?
Because some people don't love me, maybe.
It's because you've got a loyalty problem.
Loyalty problem.
They're in your campaign.
They're in your campaign.
Your White House.
Your White House.
In Congress.
In Congress.
Even your own family.
Your own family.
They whisper about you.
They whisper about you.
They leak, spin, lie. They tell the media they're smart and you're out of control.
And you're out of control.
That you can't focus.
Can't focus.
That you're mentally and physically weak.
Physically weak.
That you hide in your bunker,
Scared
and shaky. Laugh when you can't walk down a ramp or drink water. All of them.
They're in your campaign.
The ones you know and the ones you don't know.
Ones you don't know.
Whispering about you.
Whispering about you. Ones you don't know.
They expect you to
They
lose.
expect you to lose.
They want the media to like them and to get one last big payday before you go down.
Go down.
With so many leaks, you probably think it could be anyone.
So many leaks.
Donald,
It could be anyone.
it's everyone.
It's everyone.
Damn. Merciless. Wow. All right. So there's a lot that I like about this ad. But the thing I like the most is that it's true. You don't think the people around Trump know that he's an idiot and that he can be easily played for money? Yep. The other thing, of course, I like is the whispery, right? They just had to add that extra whisper, right? And then, of course, that's the title of the ad, Whispers. And so that lady, she's like back there like, it's everybody. They're all screwing you over. They're taking your money. Oh, it's so good. Oh, I love it. All right. So now, getting back to the point, though, right? So now, yes, it is true. A lot of people around Donald Trump only use him for money. For example, look at Brad Parscale, right? Brad Parscale was a nobody that ended up making millions off Donald Trump. Now he owns a $2.4 million waterfront property and he owns a Ferrari. He's doing pretty good for himself, right? You think that guy gives a damn if Donald Trump wins or loses? No. The guy already got paid. The same with all of these different campaign ads. For example, Garrett Lansing. Lansing owns a payment processing company, right? So he started that while as a staffer at the National Republican Congressional Committee, the NRCC. And he continued to run it while he worked at the Republican National Committee. He has taken $1.7 million in not campaign contributions, but campaign spending for his services. Katie Walsh, briefly a Trump White House aide and former RNC chief of staff, received $877,000 through her firms. Richard Walters, who at the age of 30 is currently the chief of staff, makes $244,943 a year in salary, but last year was paid an additional $135,000 through his own consulting firm. Since the Trump presidency began, he has been paid a total of $755,324. It's a lot of money. Laura Trump, wife of Eric Trump, Kimberly Guilfoyle, girlfriend of Donald Trump Jr. and current COVID patient, are now also both receiving $15,000 a month of campaign money that is routed through Parscale's companies. So that's money that was hidden from public view. And I wonder how much of that Donald Trump really knows. How much of that spending? You think Donald Trump's sitting around looking at what his campaign is spending money on? Do you really think that's happening? Do you really think he's paying attention? Of course not. Why would he? He's got he's got these great people. And so these great people are like, I don't know, let's divert money here. Let's put it here. Let's do it here. And make sure that all of our friends get paid. I wonder who else is on the grift. Now, that said, it's kind of the problem that Democrats have, right? The Democratic establishment, I should say, right? So there are highly paid consultants in the Democratic Party that are also getting paid whether or not they win or lose. That was one of the problems Hillary Clinton had, right? She had those consultants, very, very wealthy consultants that made tons of money and still helped to drive her campaign into the ground. Again, getting paid whether or not they win or lose. And so they still put forward the same terrible campaign strategy. Well, what's happening in the Trump campaign right now? They're also putting together the same strategy that they did it in 2016, even though the the environment is vastly different than it was before back in 2016. You can't run the same kind of campaign twice, especially if your campaign is herder government bad, right? Herder administration is terrible. But wait a minute, it's your administration. You've been in power for 4 years. And so now you actually have to go and defend the things that you did and the things that you didn't do. And so there's that, right? But there's more. With Trump, as I said before, he surrounds himself with the best people, the greatest people, even though his, the fact that the administration has had a record turnover because I guess the swamp is draining itself, I guess. Yeah, that must be it. No, conmen and grifters always surround themselves with other conmen and grifters. For example, Omarosa Manigault Newman, right? So she worked in the Trump administration and she was all, oh my God, Trump's the greatest person ever. As soon as she gets fired, she puts out a book and says, I can't believe how many times Donald Trump said the N-word around me. There's more, right? Former press secretary Sean Spicer, right? Made money. Fired FBI director James Comey. Made money. I got more on him later. Former White House communications director Hope Hicks. Made money. Now she's working in the Trump campaign. Former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. All of these people have made cash, whether through being against Trump or for Trump, but all because of their connections to Trump. And at least 20 books will have been written about Trump's political dealings in his first administration, or his first term alone. Several of them by members of the administration, of course, Washington insiders, staff members, FBI officials, politicians, advisors, and other journalists. By the way, I'm making a bold prediction here. Kellyanne Conway is going to write a book, especially if Donald Trump loses this election. She's going to write a book saying, I can't believe what a terrible president Donald Trump was. She's probably writing it right now. Who knows? And look, we still don't know who that anonymous person who said, don't worry, the adults are in the room. Don't worry about Donald Trump. That's why we're not going to use the 25th Amendment. We don't know who that person is. Who are they? Who is he or she? We don't know. But my guess is Donald Trump loses. That person comes out and exposes themselves in a book. Because of course, right? Of course. But look, the point of this is quite simple, right? This ad is to tell the truth about the people around Donald Trump. And also they make some excellent digs on Donald Trump. Oh, you're weak. Oh, you can't go, you struggle going down a ramp. You can't, drink a glass of water with one hand. I mean, just the digs are fantastic. I love it. And the effect that they're going for is obvious. It's to play on Donald Trump's paranoia. Because he is deeply paranoid. He's concerned about one thing, loyalty. He's asked officials like James Comey whether or not they were loyal to Donald Trump. Not the United States, but to Donald Trump, right? And if you're not loyal, well, you're a rat. You're a rat, like Michael Cohen's a rat, like Jeff Sessions is a rat. Anybody who doesn't swear loyalty to you is bad, is a rat, and therefore needs to be kicked out, eliminated, fired, whatever. And so that's what's brilliant about this ad. It was designed to get under Donald Trump's skin, and that's what Democrats are too weak to be able to do. They won't do it, right? Democrats would run ads like in 2016 about how Donald Trump is bad, or Orange Man bad, right? And look, he is. And you point out the obvious stuff, right? But Donald Trump and the Republican Party, they don't care about that, especially the Republican base. They don't care like, oh, yeah, he's sexist. Well, we're sexist. Yeah, we're racist, but we're racist in coded ways. And basically all we do is to try to divide the classes so that it makes it easier for us to pick your pocket. And so, yes, we use these racial divisions. We use these class divisions and create class warfare in which, we, of course, win. But we use racism and sexism to wage that class war. so that we can make it easier to pick your pockets because you're all fighting each other. And so that's what that is. And so, by the way, Donald Trump doesn't care about those ads. It doesn't affect him, too, from the Democrats calling him a bad person, because guess what? That feeds into his victimhood complex. So this is different, though. It really goes after what does hurt him, and it taunts him, and it tells him that everybody around him, well, they don't actually like this guy. No, they're only using you for monetary. They're not actually loyal to you. And so they're taking advantage of his insecurity. So now I'm a bad liberal because in this case, I like it. I'm okay with this. Donald Trump's a deeply dangerous man, and I'm okay with fighting fire with fire. Why? Because he has to be stopped. It's not just like a normal Republican. A normal Republican is bad enough. This guy is actually worse than the normal Republican. And I say that because he is, I mean, it's really, really obvious. And I don't think I have to explain the ways in which he's terrible when it comes to not only policy, but also rhetoric and the things that he inspires, the hate that he inspires in people, the misinformation that he spreads around, all that different stuff. So he is dangerous a little bit more than the average Republican, who is also dangerous. So that said, right? Now, the other thing about this is these kind of ads from the Lincoln Project really give us an insight on into how the establishment is looking to crush populist candidates. Now, that said, like Donald Trump ran as a populist back in 2016. He's not running as a populist anymore, right? But this is the kind of stuff that they would also use to go after progressive populists, right? We know how dirty they're going to go, right? We know also that Republicans, once Donald Trump is defeated, you don't think the Republican Party, you don't think the Lincoln Project is going to turn around, or the same people in the Lincoln Project going to turn around and attack progressives? Of course they will. I mean, imagine a progressive running in 2024, right? It won't be Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders, like, he's basically, his presidential aspirations are essentially over with, right? But whatever progressive ends up vying for that seat in 2024, if they even are able to do so, by the way, will have to face, if they get any measure of success, will have to face off not only against establishment Democrats, but also against these establishment Republicans, who will then turn their fire towards them. So what's interesting is that we can learn about their strategy and how, what they're willing to do and how they're able to do it, and then use that information to try to defend against it later on. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. That said, Lincoln Project, keep it up, guys. Not only are they destroying Trump, and possibly the Republican Party with it, because, again, Donald Trump has an 82% approval rating among Republicans. So generally, this is a very small fringe group of never Trump Republicans that are taking aim at not only Donald Trump, but the rest of the party, because Donald Trump is the id of the Republican Party. But that Lincoln Project is also helping to understand how we can better fight you. And so, yeah, keep it up, man. Keep it up. Love it. All right. So let me take a quick break here. We'll be back with COVID Ken, which is a fun story here. And then more serious stuff about hydroxychloroquine and COVID parties. So stay right here. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. And of course, if you want to support the show, you can send a super chat. I'll read a couple of those if we have any after the break, as well as thanks some patrons and thanks some channel members. All right. Thank you, guys. And we'll be back in a couple minutes. Stay right here around the nation.
Uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Mike Pounds.
Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, 218 Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so before we get into the other stories here, I first want to read a super chat here from Sarge Tech. It says, I learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And that's a quote from, of course, Maya Angelou. Thank you for sharing that. All right, more here. Let's go to super chat. I'm sorry, not super chat, but patreon.com/CYDNation. I want to thank Richard Reed and Sib. So thank you, Richard. Thank you, Sib, for signing up to become a patron. That's how you can support the show, or at least one way you can support the show. Then let's go to channel memberships, Man-Made, and let's see, Toy Berryful. Hopefully I said that right. So thank you to those two as well. You can become a super chat. Damn. You can become a channel member by hitting the join button below. Oh, I am all mixed up today, apparently. All right. Also, let's see. There was an awesome comment here from somebody that I wanted to read in the chat here. Let me just see if I can find it real quick. Thank you, Gladiator, by the way. That's the comment that I'm looking for, actually. If I can find it. Let's see real quick here. Dang. All right, I'm not going to look for it for too long, but I really do want to find that because that's an awesome comment. Let's go back here. Here we go. Gladiator says, I've been subbed to the main show for a couple of years now, but just found Jeff's channel last week. Holy shit, I love how reasonable and level-headed his takes are. Well, thank you very much, Gladiator. I do really appreciate that. I'm one of those calm people. It takes a lot to get me mad. And so I try to do the news, do my perspective the best that I can. And, you guys, of course, can agree and disagree with my takes, and it's fine because what we do is we take, factual stories and I give my perspective on it. It's what I love to do. So, but thank you. I really do appreciate that comment. That's awesome. Someone sent Jeff some coffee. Yeah, I ran out. I drank it all. Sucks. All right. So let's go to COVID Ken.
You're threatened! You're coming close to me.
Back off! Threaten me again! Back the up, put your phone down!
That was a video that has gone viral of a Florida man who was apparently reacting to a woman, an elderly woman, that had asked him to please wear a mask at the local Costco. So that occurred, of course, in Florida, Fort Myers, at the end of June. Now, you can hear the guy said, well, I'm threatened. I'm threatened. So what do you mean? Now, if it's an elderly woman that asked him to put his mask on, well, then where was the man that you could hear? Who was the man that you could hear talking? Well, it was a bystander that was believed to have been defending this elderly woman. So here's another one. It's amazing. So look, you can't tell someone to back off while also continuously coming closer to the person that you're telling to back off. It seems a little counterproductive, really. And this entire thing, of course, is all about not wanting to be slightly inconvenienced by wearing a mask at the grocery store. You know what I've been saying in the show. Just wear the damn mask. That's it. wear the damn mask. It's literally not going to kill you to wear it for 15 minutes while you pick up another case of Natty Light. I'm serious. What is wrong with you people? What is wrong with the people in general? But look, this guy was escorted out of the store, according to Twitter, with one of the customers who was targeted by the man praising Costco for de-escalating the situation. This customer said, to give Costco the credit, they escorted him out and made me wait inside and monitored him until he left. And then they sent someone with me to the car to make sure I'm okay. Well, that's great. Credit to them. That's exactly what they should do in those kind of situations. So I give them credit for doing that. So this has been viewed several million times now, with people trying to figure out who this guy is and to try to get him fired, right? Canceled. They're going to cancel this guy hardcore. And so I want to read some of these social media posts, not about, who he is. I don't really care who this guy is. But I still think that what he did was 100% uncalled for and ridiculous. So now one person says, wow, the number of white people that melt down and know to use language like I feel threatened, while they're the ones threatening people or pointing guns, is insane. Yeah, that reminds me of, what was it, Amy Cooper? She was the person, the lady in New York. And by the way, that's not a political thing. This wasn't over masks or anything like that. But Amy Cooper decided to weaponize, the fact that she had felt threatened, right? Or the idea that she had felt threatened by a black man in order to call the cops because, he had asked her to, I believe it was to put a leash on her dog. So that was Central Park Karen, right? So that was that story. And again, it wasn't over masks or anything like that, but it's the same kind of weaponization. And so this guy says, well, I feel threatened while being super, super aggressive and threatening. Doesn't exactly check out, but there's a reason that they do it, to sort of weaponize that. Now, another person says, how do you back off from someone who's advancing towards you? And if anyone is being threatening, it's the guy screaming in the video wearing no mask. Many social media users have pointed out as well that Florida is a stand your ground state. So, for example, I feel threatened looking at someone with a concealed carry permit, just looking for an excuse to draw their weapon. A lot like George Zimmerman. We're also looking at someone with zero self-control and poor judgment that should lose that permit. Another one says he didn't feel threatened. My interpretation is that he was trying to set the scene so that if he could provoke the person filming to do anything, he could shoot him. Since Florida is a stand your ground state, he was hoping to murder the filmer and then get off based on that. Again, we don't know for sure, but we do know that this guy was pissed or seemed pissed for no reason. Again, this is over someone politely asking them to wear a mask for that person's safety. Look, it's an elderly person, right? Elderly people happen to be more susceptible to complications when it comes to COVID-19, and so more likely to die from those complications. So it's to protect her health. But apparently he's not interested in doing that. Others have said, of course, that this person reminds them of how a police officer or corrections officer seems to act. I don't know. We don't know for sure who he is, where he works, or if he's a police officer or ex-military. We don't know any of that information. But the way he's acting, look, I think he was acting like a child. Like, you can't just go off on people for asking you to wear a mask and then, causing them to film you when you explode. That's ridiculous. Wouldn't it be simpler just to wear a mask? I mean, if you're scared of the mask, then you could always stay home until coronavirus is over. I'm just saying. I mean, why should we as a society have to cater to anti-maskers spreading their diseases everywhere? Why should we? But seriously, though, the least you could do is stop threatening people and acting like babies when we ask them to do what's the very least that you can do to prevent grandma from getting an extremely contagious virus that could land her in the hospital or even kill her. We're not asking for much, folks. Just for people to wash their hands and to wear a mask and to stay 6 feet away from each other as possible until this is over. Because guess what? If you don't do that, then this is never going to be over. And if you can't manage something that simple, then you should probably just stay home. All right. Let's move on. Last story of the day. So this is actually really interesting because there's a lot of different components to this. All right. A 17-year-old Fort Myers teen recently died from COVID-19 complications after her mother first took her to a party with 100 people where she got sick and then had refused medical treatment until later and instead treated her with hydroxychloroquine. So now the teenager, Carson Davis, was a cancer survivor with a rare ongoing autoimmune disorder who died of respiratory failure after contracting coronavirus in early June. So, look, this is a devastating story. I'm going to try to be as careful as possible, but I think it's a good example of the danger of misinformation going around during the pandemic. So now we find this out according to a Florida medical examiner's report that reported on Carson's death. Davis had attended a 100-person church event where people were not asked to wear masks or do any sort of social distancing. And that happened 2 weeks before she died in a Miami-Dade hospital. Now, local media, of course, had reported on this before at the end of June, but now it's being revisited after data scientist Rebecca Jones called attention to the medical examiner's findings in her own report. Now, Jones looked at this, and by the way, Jones had oversaw the Florida Department of Health's COVID-19 dashboard. She was removed from her position in May as Florida started to reopen because of what she was reporting. So now on Monday, Jones told Newsweek that she had found the medical examiner's report on Davis's death while conducting research for Florida COVID victims in an effort to document them, since the state no longer wants to do that, right? They're not interested in documenting coronavirus deaths because of political reasons. So that makes Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump look bad. And so, well, they don't want that to happen, especially since Biden is now taking a lead in Florida. So there are a lot of people in Florida that are very unhappy with not only DeSantis, but Donald Trump as well for his response to the coronavirus epidemic or pandemic. So now she said, I was validating death data between the medical examiner's reports, the Department of Health's caseline data, and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's reports as part of a larger project to find deaths that may have been removed from DOH's case data when I found the report about Carson Davis. I started looking into her mother, the church where the COVID party was held with more than 100 children, her health history, and who she was, and I felt so angry and sad that this happened. Davis was, of course, a member at the congregation at Fort Myers First Assembly of God. That church, of course, held a party on June 10th, and it had, like I said, over 100 people and did not enforce mask and social distancing. Now, originally, it was reported to be a COVID party, right? That is not correct. It was actually not a COVID party. A COVID party is actually something different, where people go to these parties to willingly infect each other in order to, I guess, build up a tolerance or a herd immunity or something like that, which has been shown to not be the case, as antibodies tend to, at least according to new studies, the antibodies disappear after a while, making it so that you can't really build up a herd immunity to it. So I want to be very, very clear on that, that it's not a COVID party. It was just a party, right? But again, they were irresponsible as they invited over 100 people and didn't enforce any sort of guidelines like mask wearing. That led, of course, Carson to contract the virus and begin showing symptoms within the next couple of weeks During the 9 days that followed, she was given a course of antibiotics, as well as hydroxychloroquine and oxygen via her grandfather's portable machine by her parents while she were at home. So they did not immediately take her to the hospital. They began a home treatment of hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, I believe. Azithromycin. That is the antibiotic that they also pair with hydroxychloroquine. Her mother is a nurse and had taken care of her during that time. And she believed that this course of antibiotics and hydroxychloroquine would be effective. It turns out to have not been effective. Later on, the hospital had recommended intubation when Davis was admitted to its pediatric unit on June 19th, but her parents declined the procedure, as is, of course, their right to do so. But she ended up, of course, going back on June 22nd to receive plasma therapy and was eventually intubated, but died 1 day later. So, Jesus. Look, I'm not saying that there was a guarantee that if she had been treated earlier the right way, that she would have survived. COVID-19 is incredibly nasty. She had, of course, an autoimmune disorder, was a cancer survivor. So she already had a lot of things that were stacked against her. And so it is deadly. But it's a possibility that early enough treatment in the right way could have saved her life as well. We don't necessarily know. But what I know is that it all goes back to the original bad decision of going to a party at a church and not taking any sort of precautions, and instead relying on hydroxychloroquine. Now, that said, right, there's a new study out that was actually published in the International Society of Infectious Disease, and it was conducted in Michigan hospitals. And it did find that hydroxychloroquine was actually more successful than previously stated. And so let me give you some of the information that I have on that. Now, the study had analyzed 2,541 patients hospitalized among the system's 6 hospitals. This is again in Detroit. Between March 10th and May 2nd, it found that 13% of those treated with hydroxychloroquine died, while 26% of those who did not receive the drug also died. Right. So more people who were not treated with this drug ended up dying, but more people treated with the drug didn't die. So among all patients in the study, there was an overall in-hospital mortality rate of 18%. Many who died had underlying conditions that put them at greater risk, according to the Henry Ford Health System. Now, globally, the mortality rate for hospitalized patients is between 10 and 30%, and it's 58% among those in the intensive care unit or have been on a ventilator. Patients with a median age of 64 were among those analyzed, with 51% of men and 56% African American. Roughly 82% of the patients began receiving hydroxychloroquine within 24 hours and 91% within 48 hours, a factor that Dr. Marcus Zervos identified as a potential key to success. So they say, well, if you give it early. Well, a lot of the risk factors that are included in this, other than the autoimmune disorders, Davis didn't have. She was only 17 years old. So she was fairly young. And so, if you're younger, you generally have better success at, surviving COVID-19. But at the same time, she did have that autoimmune disorder. She did have had survived cancer as well. And so had numerous health problems surrounding that. And so there's no guarantee that a hydroxychloroquine early, like evidenced in this study, would have actually done anything to save her life. And so we don't necessarily know, right? In fact, Zervos cautioned against extrapolating the results for treatment outside of hospital settings and without further study. And so that was one thing that Davis's parents had done, is do this outside of a hospital setting in their home. And so does that make a difference? I don't know. I don't know if it would have made a difference. It seems to me like it would have. Like it would have made a huge difference had she had been treated in the hospital. And so this again goes back to really, really bad decisions, numerous bad decisions. I mean, why would you take your immunocompromised daughter to a 100-person party without a mask? Especially in a state that is now and has been for several weeks seeing large increases, large spikes in coronavirus cases. Why would you do that? If that were my kid, no way in hell. I wouldn't do that. I mean, and understand here, this isn't, we're not dealing with uneducated people. Her mother was a nurse, educated in medical stuff. And yet, I think her identity, her political identity as a Christian right-wing Trump supporter, again, this is my assumption, right, might have outweighed that. I mean, did she believe that Donald Trump when he said that hydroxychloroquine was an effective treatment outside of a hospital setting? Remember, he used to say, well, just go ahead and take it and it will protect you from getting coronavirus. Well, there's no evidence supporting that. In fact, that's what the Henry Ford Health System is looking into, whether or not it could be effective. So far, we don't know. But there is some evidence, according to this brand new study, that says that it is effective for treatment later on. And so, or at least more effective in reducing the death tolls. And so, I don't know, man. It's all I can say is that this person made a lot of bad decisions, and now a young person is dead, a teenager. And so the fact that she ignored what experts were saying, and that fact ultimately led to her daughter's death. And so I think this is the price of misinformation. I mean, again, she wasn't uninformed. She was misinformed. You have Fox News. You got the president of the United States. You got anti-maskers. You got conspiracy theorists. All of those people, they lied and people died. They put out misinformation, knowing that it was misinformation in a lot of different cases, and now people have died because of it. And you've got governors that are hiding the real death toll in Florida because they don't want to make Donald Trump look bad politically. This isn't a political issue. Hydroxychloroquine it should be a political issue. We should look at whether or not it actually works. Earlier studies said it doesn't work and that it causes massive heart problems. I've reported on that. This study now says, well, those other studies weren't peer reviewed. This one is at the Henry Ford Health System. And we say that it is actually more effective and doesn't cause heart issues. Well, where's the truth in that? I don't necessarily know. That's why we need more studies to continue to corroborate this, to find out. Because, look, I'm one of those people that my mind can be changed if the correct evidence were presented, right? If there's evidence overwhelmingly that supports this, then yes, I will report that because that's reality, right? And there's no political agenda behind this. I just want whatever works the best to be prescribed to people to save people's lives. That's not Donald Trump's intention, right? I don't think that's Donald Trump's intention. I don't think that's Ron DeSantis's intention. I don't think it's the anti-maskers' intention, right? No, I think their intention is probably self-motivated. And so it's, one of those things that you really need to be careful about. It's all about their personal political identity, which to them seems to matter more than people's lives, seems to matter more than Carson's life. And I hate that. Putting political identity and ego over people's lives, it's disgusting. Over 130,000 people have died so far. More are going to die as well. And so the depravity of some of these people that are pushing, things without evidence is just disgusting. All right. That's all I got to say. All right. So that's it. Look, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't. Become a member, channel member, or a patron, all that stuff. And let's see. By the way, there's one super chat here. Tango Bango says, okay. Show us the undies. That's weird. Humans are space orcs. Okay. Show us the undies. You can thank Emma for that. I'm going to have to go and check my Twitter feed, Dango, because I have no idea what that's about. So anyway, that's it. Like I said, I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys for going around the nation with me today. We will see you tomorrow. Another great show right here, 3 p.m. Eastern, TYD Nation. All right. Oh, and remember, change begins with you. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.
Please clap.
Why? You're getting nervous, man.
Mike Pence.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.